I'm Grimgriz the Hoodlum, and I've been told that there is someone disrespecting conspiracy theorists, and I have been summoned to offer my reaction and responses to this atrocious assault on my people. That we're trolled immediately in the title with this part 2 nonsense, and that offense has resulted in the need for this response video, which we begin now.
I'm glad you're back, but keep it down, because today what I'm talking about, once again, are conspiracy theories. There are different types, what's really going on, why we should care, what conspiracy theories in general are good for, and this is sort of a follow-on to my earlier conspiracy theories video. I've realized that a lot of people still have some confusion or some incompleteness around this issue. And
Are you starting with
well,
gaslighting?
also, like, conspiracy theory videos seem to get a lot of hits. So, let's be honest about that. But I think I have a little bit more to add. So I wanted to add that.
I'll start with this. Like, if you actually want to do outreach to conspiracy theorist people, you start the broadcast off by saying Kninigan.
Can I help you out, especially if you're, conspiracy minded or whatever, to sort out what might be going on with you, what might be going on with your friends who are conspiracy minded.
What is the antonym of conspiracy minded?
Issues around anxiety, which I did a video on, and it hopefully, this framing will help you and help others to sort of break out of the worst aspects, we'll say, of the conspiratorial thinking.
That's like the flower of life, right?
What does and doesn't matter about conspiracy theories?
Let's think about it.
I think that the number of total conspiracy theories, or the number of people engaged in them at least, is a good measure of how unstable your society actually is. Because what I think they're measuring is
Is North Korea stable by that measure?
comfort level with which people have in the structures that we have, right? So if you feel the structures are intact, you're not gonna need conspiracies to explain what's going on. If the structures aren't intact, then what that really
Sorry.
If the structures aren't intact, then what that really means is they're not intelligible to you, right? And intelligibility, big deal.
Where'd you learn to do that one, pal?
Deal with it. We're trying to build a narrative structure that will flow and explain what we're seeing, or allow us to have some control over what we're seeing. Organized conspiracy. And this is typically, when people use conspiracy, this is what everybody thinks everybody means anyway, right? Where there's some shadowy figure at the head of the table. Usually has a cigar, and he's got a low voice. You can't quite see him because he's in the shadows. And he tells everybody, like, go do this, and go do this crazy thing, and that crazy thing, and then we'll take over the world.
You mean like the smoking man worked for in X-Files?
Yeah. That's definitely the way people see them, as organized. And I'm not saying that conspiracies aren't real. There are conspiracies. Some of them are organized. Absolutely true. Some of them are organized. Absolutely true.
Some of them.
A lot of them are hybrids, because sometimes people organize stuff, but it doesn't work that way. Like, they don't really have
Some people organize stuff, but it doesn't really work that way.
A firm grip, a level of control, or even a level of influence that they need. So what
are they organizing that they need influence and control? It's very confusing.
they do is they get people involved in these schemes and try to generate other types of other methods of getting their plan across, right? So in that way, it's not a conspiracy because people don't know about it.
What do you mean by plan that? You're saying there's failed attempts at conspiracy?
About it, right? But that's more, and one of the ways people do that was with stupidity. Conspiracies of stupidity. So a conspiracy of stupidity looks something like this. If I were to tell you that that we'll say a certain drug doesn't work, and I'm just like put that it doesn't work, and then you could rename the drug or reclassify the drug, all right, and then people would get suspicious and they might not take it, and they don't realize they're being manipulated into not taking something. They're just stupid, right? Because they've believed something that, is not true.
Okay, so these stupid people have been manipulated into not taking the renamed drug that doesn't work.
Right? Because they've believed something that, is not true. And
Let's apply this, sir, if you don't mind. If you'll allow me, sir. Let's apply this to the case of aspartame. This drug that gets not approved 16 times by the FDA, and then Rumsfeld gets in, and suddenly it's in your Diet Coke and everybody's fine with it. Is that a conspiracy of stupidity?
I don't know anything about that, so I'm not going to engage with it. But I heard something bad, and we prefer bad information over good information, evolutionarily speaking. So we prefer to believe things that lead to bad outcomes, even if we have better information at hand that can tell us, oh, no, that drug's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. These conspiracy stupidities are not organized. There's no one running them necessarily. They may be the result of an organized conspiracy from a very small number of people. Roughly a disinformation campaign, but it can also happen by accident. So people are really dumb.
So when some people say conspiracy of stupidity, they mean accidental disinformation campaigns.
It's really brilliant, but not easy for them to understand because they didn't believe you and they're stupid. And that's happened, by the way, not that particular example, but examples like that have happened where, the government's been offered new opportunities or people have been offered companies new opportunities and they don't believe them because they're too fantastical or whatever. And so in their stupidity and their ignorance, they decide not to fund something or not to go with something or to kill a technology that they actually have. That's happened many times. It happens in tech all the time. You'd be surprised how much good tech we've lost because people are like, oh.
Yeah. Never attribute as malice what can be written off as stupidity, said the guy who was maliceful, taking advantage of stupid people.
I don't know what this does. We better keep it in the basement where it's safe. That happens. Another type of conspiracy or thing that looks like conspiracy is narrative framing. And narrative framing works something like this. See, we as human beings, right, we naturally play out narratives. That's what we do. Narratives are very important. And that's a method of outsourcing, again, our cognition, right? So we're not having to think about things all the time. So just like, oh, okay, well, this always works like this. So I'm always going to interact with it like this and everything will be fine. When the narrative is broken and you don't notice, it looks like people are acting as if something isn't true or is true.
This is the one
obviously
he went over with me in our talk.
It's like, wait a minute. They look like they're acting against reality. And when people act against reality, we assume either they know something we don't, or they're being paid or bribed, or they've got some grand scheme. And most often, they're just acting out the narrative as they always have, and they don't know any better.
It looks like conspiracy when they're on NPC autopilot.
You're doing something and now you stopped because, of the fear, basically. Whereas with narrative framing, you're just like acting out the way you acted out. One way to think about this, if you always go to the bank and you don't know what to do, you might just leave. Sometimes people are just playing through the course. When things don't work the way they expect, they don't have a narrative or a script to play out. They're used to everything just kind of working. And then they're like totally confused. And
And so the brain goes into freeze mode, and then they find the pattern, the next pattern they do recognize, and follow it until they get more information to deal with the first.
And it manifests in all sorts of ways. All sorts
That's
of ways.
narrative framing?
Especially
When the
when rules
narrative
change.
breaks.
But it's not necessarily conspiracy. It's just people doing what they would do under normal circumstances and not recognizing the circumstances aren't normal. And then there's another type of conspiracy. Again, and these last couple have not been real conspiracies, I'll say. They look like conspiracies. It's very easy to kind of try to find intelligibility in them. This one I call common proximal goal, not really a conspiracy. So what happens is people get together and do a thing, and you think that they're organized, when in fact they all have completely different goals. They all started from completely different starting points. So one example of this that I like to use is riots. There are real anarchists who really want to be anarchists and do anarchy things. Whatever that means to them is kind of irrelevant. We'll just throw aside the definition of anarchy, the real definition, and say people who are pissed off at the government and actually want to change and are willing to use some force to do it. Right? Obviously, government agencies will say, who were also in the riots rioting and creating a worse riot. Well, yeah, because they wanted to hear their own story. So if I have a job and my job is to, among other things, quell riots, not having any riots is kind of a problem for me. It's a job security issue. But if there are riots and they're really bad, then I can come in, or my agency can come in, the agency that I'm part of, by the way, because I'm a superhero too, can come in and push that down, man. Yeah, now we've made a small problem bigger so that we can feel better about our involvement in fixing the small problem that we made bigger. That happens. They just have a hero complex. They want to be the heroes of their own story. So they're making that story happen by acting as if, right? Jordan Peterson talks about this, act as if. So
No, sir. No, sir. They're being their own hero by following their orders to infiltrate and escalate the riot.
they're acting as if, and they're creating the story so that they can be the hero of that story, whether the oppressed and downtrodden victim or they're the government official, valiantly riding in to make the large riot go away. It doesn't really matter, right? They're both engaging in this whole idea of common proximal goal, right? And trying to find a way that we're involved in something that's bigger than us, right? And it's really big. It's bigger than the group that we inhabit. It makes our group look bigger, but actually,
Like, common proximal goal with that breakdown just means that, like, there's more than one side to an event.
anarchists have nothing in
And
common.
here's three convenient motivations.
There's nothing in common with people who want to be heroes. They just don't have any commonality, and they're not coordinating, not in any real sense, because they all have different goals. Like, how do you coordinate towards different goals? The proximal goal of rioting is the same, but rioting doesn't have an outcome in and of itself. And that's where people get confused. If you see riots, you want an explanation for riots, you'll try to find some intelligibility. And intelligibility is a tricky thing because we need it. We need intelligibility. We need a certain amount of it. And when the world is sort of moving towards chaos and away from order, we're losing intelligibility in that process, and we're desperately trying to get it back. We just want to get the intelligibility back. And we'll try anything. We'll read random things on the board as code. That is obviously for the lizard people. Duh. Now they know that I'm on their side and where the resources are that they can strip from the planet because I've hidden them because I'm part of the lizard people conspiracy. We want that level of intelligibility because now
The precision of speech in this segment. Brilliant.
I know what's on the board. Like, yeah, obviously. Duh. Straight from the ancient aliens to lizard people to me. That's right. It helps us to feel like we live in a world that we can understand. Even if we don't understand it or don't want to understand it, that's not relevant. We can understand it. This is a big thing.
See, like, this is where we have to go into, like, this part where he says me and watch the video and see if his eyes do the flicker.
Like, yeah, obviously. Duh. Straight from the ancient aliens to lizard people to me.
If you want to make jokes like that, you should say again. That's what you should say it to prove you can, because the lizard people can't.
That's right. It helps us to feel like we live in a world that we can understand. Even if we don't understand it or don't want to understand it, that's not relevant. We can understand it. This is a big thing. People tend to, again, sort of create these binaries, which I'm not a fan of. But actually, there's almost always three states. So
The way you pointed your finger up there was like like there was supposed to be a hootenanny, and the only hootenanny was me.
forces a bunch of types of behavior out of us, right? And again, we don't need control. Most people don't need control. We just need to know whether or not we have to worry about something, or in what way, or when we have to worry about something. Lots of different ways that we can feel comfortable and safe and okay. And I think we get caught up in this intelligibility by trying to make very complicated
Comfortable, safe, and okay is the exact opposite of what the conspiracy theorists feel.
results. One could well look at, say, the recent pullout in Afghanistan and say the generals are under control of the lizard people, because they literally say
You know, they could look at the recent pullout of Afghanistan and say that the refugees are the Sardukar from Dune.
dumb things about why the Afghan army didn't stand up for themselves. It's like, you must not be required to take basic psychology or, I don't know, look at human behavior ever in the world to be a general in the US military. And despite having consultants telling you, no, this is a problem and this is bad and, you need to pay attention to this, well,
I don't know. I'm going to stop now because it feels like I'm trouncing the man so hard he won't ever be able to face the internet again on this issue. It's the things you're pointing at as to be conspiracies aren't even conspiracies. Let me give you some valid conspiracies. Eva von Braun on the tombstone has a firmament quote after having gone to the South Pole. That fact makes lots of conspiracies. Play with that one. Um, Pixar's contracts all came after. Look into Bluebeam. Bluebeam, sir. If you want to shoot down Bluebeam conspiracy from every angle you can shoot it down, and I don't know. Then you will be qualified to speak on conspiracy theories. These riots, not conspiracies. These other things, it doesn't seem to be. You don't. Use this conspiracy to muddy what conspiracies even are in this video. Slanderous. Wow. Wow.